Captain Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stepped out of his armored transport. The red dust of Kepler 442b swirled around his boots in the thin atmosphere. 3 weeks ago, this mining colony had gone silent. No distress calls, no final messages, just silence. "Sensors are picking up something big about 2 miles north," said Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez, checking her scanner. "It's not showing up on our maps." Jake nodded to his team. Dr. Lisa Grant adjusted her medical pack while Commander Ben Hayes checked his weapon one more time. They had been friends for years, fighting together across the frontier. But something felt different about this mission. The walk across the rocky terrain took an hour. As they climbed over a ridge, they saw it. A massive black building rose from the ground like a metal mountain. Strange purple lights flickered along its surface. The architecture was wrong, too smooth, too organic. This was not human-made. "That's Zephyrian construction," Dr. Grant whispered. "What are they doing here?" The Zephyrians were an alien race that controlled a large part of the galaxy. They were known for their advanced technology and cold intelligence. Most humans had never seen one in person. Peace treaties kept the two species apart, with clear boundaries that neither side crossed. Jake felt his stomach tighten. Why would they build a secret base in human territory? They approached the building carefully. Ben found an entrance, a circular doorway that opened with a soft hiss as they got close. The air inside was warm and humid. Strange smells filled their noses. The walls glowed with a faint blue light that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. "The life support is designed for humans," Lisa said, checking her scanner. "Temperature, oxygen levels, everything. Why would aliens build this for us?" They moved deeper into the facility. The corridors were wide and curved with no sharp corners. Everything felt organic, as if the building had grown rather than been built. Their footsteps echoed strangely in the empty halls. Amy stopped suddenly. "I'm picking up life signs. Multiple contacts. They're small." Jake's blood ran cold. Small life signs in an alien facility could only mean one thing. "Show me the way." They followed Amy through a maze of corridors. The building seemed to go on forever, with levels above and below them. Finally, they reached a massive chamber. Jake's breath caught in his throat. Rows and rows of glass containers filled the room. Each container was about the size of a coffin, filled with a green liquid that glowed softly. Inside each one floated a small figure. "Dear God," Lisa whispered. Jake ran to the nearest container. Through the glass, he could see a young boy, maybe 8 years old. The child's eyes were closed and strange wires were attached to his head. He was breathing, but he looked so still, so peaceful. Too peaceful. "They're all children," Ben said, his voice shaking with anger. "Human children." The team moved through the chamber, counting. 47 containers. 47 children. All between the ages of 6 and 14. Boys and girls, all floating in the alien liquid, all with the same wire devices attached to their heads. Lisa ran her medical scanner over one of the containers. "They're alive, but they're in some kind of induced sleep. These devices on their heads. They're reading brain activity, neural patterns, emotions, Jake asked. "The Zephyrians are harvesting their feelings," Lisa explained, her face pale. "Fear, sadness, desperation. The scanners show massive emotional stress even while they sleep." Amy was working at a control panel nearby. "Captain, you need to see this." Jake joined her at a large screen. Text scrolled past in the flowing script of the Zephyrian language, but the computer was translating it into English. "Subject 23 shows excellent fear response patterns," Jake read aloud. "Emotional energy output increased by 300% when separated from family unit. Recommend continued isolation protocols." Ben punched the wall. "They're torturing children for their emotions." More text appeared on the screen. Jake felt sick as he read the records. The children had been taken from different human colonies over the past 2 years. Their families thought they were dead. The Zephyrians had been careful to make it look like accidents or disappearances. "This one says human offspring provide the purest emotional energy ever discovered," Amy read. "They feed off fear and sadness. The younger the subject, the stronger the response." Lisa was examining the containers more closely. "These aren't just holding cells. They're designed to create nightmares. The children are living through their worst fears over and over again. The aliens are farming their terror." Jake stared at the nearest container. The little boy inside looked so peaceful, but Lisa's scanners showed his brain was screaming. The child was trapped in an endless nightmare, providing power for alien machines through his suffering. "We're getting them out," Jake said. "All of them. Right now." "Wait," Lisa said. "We don't know what removing them suddenly might do. The shock could kill them. We need to be careful." But Jake was already moving to the control panel. He had seen enough. These children had suffered long enough. Whatever the risks, they were going home. Amy worked beside him, her fingers flying over the alien controls. "I think I can start a slow wake-up process. It should be gentle enough not to harm them." One by one, the containers began to drain. The green liquid disappeared and the glass lids opened with soft clicks. The children began to stir, small movements at first, then deeper breaths. The first child to wake up was a girl about 10 years old. Her eyes opened slowly, filled with confusion and fear. When she saw Jake's face, she screamed. "It's okay," Jake said softly. "We're humans. We're here to help you. You're safe now." But even as he said the words, Jake knew they weren't true. These children would never be truly safe again. The Zephyrians had stolen more than just their freedom. They had stolen their innocence, their trust, their peace of mind. As more children woke up, the chamber filled with crying and confused voices. Lisa moved among them with her medical kit, checking each child, removing the alien devices from their heads. Ben was studying the alien computer systems. "Jake, this is just one facility. The records showed dozens of others. Hundreds of children." Jake felt something cold settle in his chest. This wasn't just a rescue mission anymore. This was the beginning of something much bigger. The Zephyrians had made a mistake. They had crossed a line that should never be crossed. They had hurt human children. And now they would learn what that mistake would cost them. 3 days later, Jake Morrison stood in the medical bay of the human rescue ship watching Dr. Marcus Webb work with the children. The young doctor moved carefully among the small beds, speaking in soft voices, trying to earn trust that had been shattered. The children were awake now, but their eyes held a haunted look that made Jake's chest tight with anger. They flinched at sudden movements. They cried out in their sleep. Some refused to eat, convinced the food was another alien trick. "How are they?" Jake asked Webb. "Physically, they're recovering well," Webb replied, checking on a young girl who was staring at the ceiling. "But mentally, Jake, I've never seen trauma like this. These children lived through years of nightmares. The aliens kept them in a state of constant terror." Admiral Kate Sullivan entered the medical bay, her face grim. She was a tall woman with gray hair and steel in her eyes. Behind her walked Agent Rick Carter, the intelligence officer who had been studying the alien data they recovered. "Captain Morrison," the Admiral said, "we need to talk." They gathered in the ship's conference room. Rick spread holographic displays across the table, showing star maps, alien facilities, and lists of names. "The data you recovered paints a picture we never imagined," Rick began. "The Zephyrians have been running this operation for over 5 years. 47 facilities across their space, each holding between 30 and 60 human children." Jake did the math in his head. Over 2,000 children, missing from their families, trapped in alien nightmares, their fear being harvested like crops. "Why children?" Admiral Sullivan asked. "Adult humans produce emotional energy too," Rick explained. "But children's emotions are purer, stronger. The aliens discovered that a frightened child produces 10 times more usable energy than an adult. They've been perfecting the process, learning how to maximize fear production." Dr. Webb leaned forward. "The children I've interviewed remember being taken during what looked like accidents. Ship malfunctions, habitat failures, transport crashes. The Zephyrians made it look like the children died so no one would search for them." Jake thought about his own daughter, Emma. She was safe on Earth, attending school, playing with friends. But these children, their families had mourned them as dead while they suffered in alien laboratories. "There's more," Rick continued. "The facility you found was running something called Project Harvest. They were studying human protective responses. They wanted to understand why humans fight so hard to protect their young." Admiral Sullivan frowned. "What did they learn?" "That was their mistake," Rick said with a cold smile. "They learned that human parental instincts are unlike anything else in the galaxy. The research notes are full of confusion. They can't understand why adult humans will sacrifice everything for children, even children that aren't their own." Jake felt something click into place. They don't have the same instincts. Exactly. Zephyrian young are independent from birth. Adults feel no special connection to children. They view human protective behavior as a weakness to exploit. Dr. Webb stood up abruptly. They're wrong. It's not a weakness. It's our greatest strength. Admiral Sullivan was studying the star maps. How long before they realize we found this facility? The automated systems were supposed to send daily reports, Rick said. We've been faking those reports, but we can only buy a few more days. Then we need to move fast, the Admiral decided. I'm sending word to Earth, full mobilization. We're going to hit every one of these facilities. Jake looked at the star map, seeing the red dots marking alien installations deep in Zephyrian space. That means war. Yes, Admiral Sullivan said simply. It does. Over the next few hours, Jake watched as the human fleet assembled. Ships that had been scattered across the frontier came together, their crews grim-faced and determined. But this wasn't just military vessels. Civilian ships joined them too. Transport captains, mining crews, merchant traders. Word was spreading through human space about the caged children. Captain Nina Blake arrived with her cargo hauler converted into a medical ship. Tech specialist Luke Turner came with a ship full of equipment for breaking alien codes. General Paul Mitchell brought 3 divisions of ground troops, all volunteers who had heard about the children. Dr. Lisa Grant worked beside Dr. Webb, trying to prepare the rescued children for what was coming. Many of them were too traumatized to speak. Others whispered about the things they had seen in their alien-induced nightmares. One boy, maybe 12 years old, grabbed Jake's arm as he passed. Captain, the boy said, there are others. Lots of others. I saw them in my dreams. The machines made us share nightmares sometimes. There are facilities everywhere. Jake knelt beside the boy's bed. What's your name, son? Billy Hayes. The boy's grip tightened. My sister Emma was taken before me. She might still be alive. Jake's blood froze. Emma Hayes? You know her? Billy's eyes lit up with desperate hope. Jake's hand shook as he pulled out his personal communicator. He scrolled through his contact list to a name he called every week. Emma Morrison. His daughter. But her full name before he adopted her had been Emma Hayes. Billy, Jake said carefully. What did your sister look like? Blonde hair, blue eyes. She had a scar on her chin from falling off her bike. Jake showed Billy a picture on his communicator. Billy's face crumpled with joy and relief. That's her! That's Emma. You found her? Jake pulled the boy into a fierce hug. She's safe, Billy. She's on Earth. She's been safe for 2 years. But even as Jake comforted Billy, his mind was racing. Emma had been found as a refugee. Her family supposedly killed in a transport accident. She had never remembered much about her life before. Now he understood why. The aliens had tried to take her, but something had gone wrong. She had escaped, traumatized and alone until Jake found her and made her his daughter. The Zephyrians had tried to take his child. Jake stood up slowly, his vision turning red around the edges. The aliens hadn't just stolen random children. They had tried to steal his daughter. They had stolen Billy, Emma's brother. They had torn apart his family before he even knew it was his family. Admiral Sullivan noticed the change in Jake's expression. Captain, what is it? It's personal now, Jake said, his voice deadly quiet. My daughter was one of their targets. This boy is her brother. The Admiral nodded grimly. Then you understand what we're fighting for. Jake looked around the room at the other officers, at the rescued children, at the star maps showing alien facilities full of human young. We're not just fighting for these children. We're fighting for every human child who might be taken next. We're fighting to make sure the Zephyrians never touch our kids again. What are you suggesting, Captain? General Mitchell asked. Jake walked to the star map and placed his hand over the Zephyrian space. Total war. No negotiations, no mercy. We hit every facility, rescue every child, and make sure the galaxy knows what happens when someone hurts human children. Admiral Sullivan smiled grimly. I like the way you think, Captain. But you should know, Earth has already made that decision. The President addressed the Federation Council this morning. Every human world is mobilizing. This isn't just a rescue mission anymore. What is it then? Jake asked. A crusade. The human fleet jumped into Zephyrian space like an angry storm. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of Admiral Sullivan's flagship, watching dozens of human ships drop out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. They had been planning this attack for 2 weeks, but nothing could have prepared him for the sight of humanity's full fury unleashed. Zephyrian fleet detected, called Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from the sensor station. 15 ships moving to intercept. Admiral Sullivan stood calmly at the center of the bridge. Open communications. The main screen flickered to life, showing a Zephyrian commander. The alien was tall and thin, with gray skin and large black eyes. When it spoke, its voice was cold and emotionless. Human vessels, you are in violation of the Kethvar peace treaty. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The treaty is void, Admiral Sullivan replied. You forfeited all protections when you began stealing our children. The Zephyrian tilted its head, confused. Children? You speak of the research subjects. They are being used for the betterment of both our species. Their emotional energy powers technology that could benefit. They are not research subjects, Jake interrupted, stepping forward. They are our young, our future, and you tortured them. The alien's expression didn't change. Torture is an inefficient term. We simply maintained optimal fear states for maximum energy production. The subjects were well fed and medically maintained. Admiral Sullivan cut the communication. Fire at will. The battle was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. The human ships moved with a coordination that seemed impossible. Every captain, every crew member fought not just for victory, but for the children trapped in alien facilities. Their anger gave them focus. Their protective instincts made them brilliant. Captain Nina Blake's converted cargo hauler shouldn't have been able to outfight a Zephyrian destroyer, but she used her ship's massive cargo doors as shields while her improvised weapons tore the alien ship apart. Tech specialist Luke Turner had hacked into Zephyrian communication networks, feeding their battle plans directly to human commanders. But the most shocking thing was how the Zephyrian technology began to fail. Their weapons are misfiring, Amy reported, disbelief in her voice. 3 of their ships just lost power completely. Dr. Lisa Grant was monitoring the alien ships with her medical sensors. Jake, you need to see this. The energy readings from their ships are going crazy. It's like they're overloading. Jake studied the data. The Zephyrian ships used emotion harvesting technology to power their systems. The same technology they used to torture human children. But now, faced with the pure rage of human parents and protectors, their systems couldn't handle the intensity. They designed their technology to harvest fear and sadness from children, Jake realized. But adult humans protecting children produce something different. Something they never planned for. The battle ended in 20 minutes. 5 Zephyrian ships were destroyed, 10 more were disabled. Not a single human ship was lost. General Paul Mitchell's ground forces landed on the planet below, while the space battle raged. The facility they found was larger than the first one. Over 100 human children floating in alien containers. But this time the rescue teams were ready. Dr. Marcus Webb had developed new procedures for safely waking the children. Medical teams moved through the facility like a well-oiled machine, removing children from their nightmares and beginning the healing process immediately. Jake accompanied the ground teams, walking through corridors lined with containment units. Each one held a child. Each child represented a family somewhere that thought their young were dead. The anger that burned in his chest wasn't just his own anymore. It was the rage of every human parent in the galaxy. Captain, called Colonel Steve Parker from deeper in the facility. You need to see this. Jake followed the colonel to a central control room. The walls were covered with screens showing data streams, energy readings, and what looked like research notes. But in the center of the room was something that made Jake's blood boil. A Zephyrian scientist stood over a control panel, frantically typing commands. When it saw the humans enter, it turned with that same cold, emotionless expression. You are making a mistake, the alien said. This research benefits your species as well as mine. The emotional energy we harvest can power medical equipment, life support systems. We are helping you. Colonel Parker raised his weapon, but Jake held up a hand to stop him. Helping us, Jake said, walking closer to the alien. By torturing our children? They are not truly harmed, the alien insisted. The fear states are artificially induced. When the research is complete, they would have been returned to your space. When? Jake demanded. The alien hesitated. The research timeline extends approximately 50 of your years. Jake stared at the creature. 50 years? These children would have spent their entire lives in alien laboratories, their fear being harvested to power alien machines. They would have died as old people, never knowing freedom, never having families of their own. You still don't understand, Jake said quietly. You think this is about the technology, about the energy. But it's not, the alien tilted its head. Explain. It's about what you chose to steal, Jake continued. Not just our people, our children. the most precious thing we have. The future of our species. Jake activated his communicator. Around the galaxy, human fleets were hitting other Zephyrian facilities. The reports coming in were all the same. Human forces fighting with impossible skill and determination. Zephyrian technology failing when confronted with true parental rage. Your machines can't handle it, Jake told the alien scientist. The emotions you've been harvesting from children, fear, sadness, despair, those are simple. But what you're facing now is something your species never evolved. The protective fury of a parent, the willingness to sacrifice everything for our young. The alien looked genuinely confused. This emotional state is highly inefficient. It causes individuals to take excessive risks to act against logical self-interest. Exactly, Jake smiled grimly. And that's why you're losing. Through the facility's communication systems, they could hear reports from across Zephyrian space. Human forces were not just winning battles. They were winning them with impossible speed and efficiency. Every fight was personal. Every human warrior was fighting for children they might never meet, but considered their own. Commander Ben Hayes contacted Jake from the ship. Captain, we're getting communications from other Zephyrian facilities. They're requesting negotiation. No negotiations, Jake replied. Not until every human child is free. Dr. Alan Foster, who had been studying captured Zephyrian technology, made an announcement that changed everything. Jake, I've figured out how their emotion harvesting systems work, and I know how to reverse them. What do you mean? Admiral Sullivan asked over the comm. The same technology they use to harvest emotions can be used to project them, Foster explained. We can take the anger, the protective fury we're all feeling, and broadcast it directly into their ships. Their systems will overload instantly. Jake looked at the alien scientist who had been listening to the conversation with growing alarm. Now you're beginning to understand, Jake told the creature. You thought you could study human emotions like specimens in a laboratory, but you made one crucial mistake. What mistake? The alien asked. You assumed we were just another species to be exploited, Jake said. But humans aren't just protective of our own children. We're protective of all children. Every child you stole became our child. Every nightmare you created became our nightmare. Every tear they cried became our reason for war. The alien stepped backward. This is not logical. These are not your genetic offspring. Logic has nothing to do with it, Jake replied. That's what makes us human. And that's what makes us stronger than you. Outside, human forces continued their sweep through Zephyrian space. But this was no longer just a rescue mission. It was humanity announcing to the galaxy that some lines could never be crossed. The age of human innocence was over. The age of human fury had begun. The Zephyrian High Council chambers had never seen chaos like this. Ambassador Clara Davis watched through the holographic display as alien leaders argued in their flowing musical language. But their calm, emotionless faces now showed something new: fear. The human emotional projection technology is destroying our infrastructure, the Zephyrian science director reported. 17 facilities have suffered complete system failures. Our ships cannot function in proximity to human forces. Jake Morrison stood beside Ambassador Davis on the human command ship. 3 weeks into the war, human forces had rescued over 800 children from Zephyrian facilities. But the cost to the alien empire was far greater than anyone had expected. Dr. Alan Foster had perfected the emotion projection system. Human ships now broadcast the protective fury of parents directly into Zephyrian technology. The aliens' emotion harvesting systems, designed to handle the simple fear of children, completely broke down when faced with the complex, powerful rage of human protectors. Their entire civilization depends on stolen emotions, Foster explained to the command staff. Power grids, transportation, communication networks, everything runs on energy harvested from other species. But they've never encountered emotions this intense before. Colonel Steve Parker entered the briefing room with a grim expression. We've found something. The main research facility on Kepler 7. It's bigger than all the others combined. Jake studied the intelligence reports. The facility held over 300 human children, but that wasn't the worst part. The Zephyrians were using it to develop new harvesting techniques. They were trying to find ways to increase fear production in their subjects. They're torturing children to make them produce more terror, Dr. Marcus Webb said, his voice shaking with anger. The medical data shows they're using pain enhancement, Isolation trauma, forced nightmare scenarios. Admiral Sullivan's face was carved from stone. How long until we can reach the facility? 6 hours, Jake replied. But Admiral, they know we're coming. Intelligence suggests they're prepared to eliminate the evidence. Everyone understood what that meant. The Zephyrians would rather kill the children than let them be rescued. Luke Turner looked up from his computer station. I might have a solution. I've been studying their communication networks. If I can hack into the facility systems, I might be able to prevent them from harming the children. Do it, Admiral Sullivan ordered. As the human fleet moved toward Kepler-7, reports came in from across the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire was collapsing faster than anyone thought possible. Their emotion-dependent technology couldn't handle human anger, and their entire infrastructure was shutting down. But more importantly, other alien species were watching. The galaxy was learning that humanity had a line that could not be crossed. Captain Nina Blake contacted the command ship from her position near a Zephyrian border world. Admiral, we're getting communication requests from 12 different alien species. They all want to know the same thing. Are humans going to attack them too? What are you telling them? Admiral Sullivan asked. That we're only here for our children, Nina replied. As long as they don't harm human young, they have nothing to fear from us. Jake listened to the communications traffic flowing through the fleet. Fear was spreading through alien space, but it wasn't fear of human weapons or ships. It was fear of human determination. Other species were realizing that humans would never stop fighting. For their children, the assault on the main research facility began at dawn on Kepler-7. Human forces had learned from their previous battles. They no longer relied only on military tactics. Dr. Foster's emotion projection systems turned the facility's own technology against it. The Zephyrian defenders found their weapons malfunctioning, their computers crashing, their entire base losing power as human rage overloaded their systems. The battle lasted less than an hour. Jake led the rescue teams into the facility's depths. What they found there would haunt him for the rest of his life. The children weren't just in containment units. They were wired into a massive network that amplified their nightmares and shared them among all the subjects. They were using the children to torture each other, Dr. Webb explained, his hands shaking as he worked to disconnect the alien devices. One child's fear was fed into another child's dreams, creating a cycle of terror that powered their entire research station. Among the children they found was a girl who looked familiar to Jake. She was about 14, with blonde hair and eyes that had seen too much. When she woke up, she looked at Jake with recognition. "You're Captain Morrison," she said weakly. "Emma talks about you all the time. She said you'd come for us." Jake's throat tightened. "Emma? She's my friend. We were in the Dream Network together. She helped me stay strong." The girl smiled through her tears. She said her dad was the best captain in the human fleet and that he'd never stop looking for missing children. Jake had to turn away for a moment. His daughter, safe on Earth, had somehow been connected to these tortured children through alien technology. She had been helping them survive their nightmares. As the rescue continued, Luke Turner made a discovery that changed everything. The Zephyrian research computers contained detailed studies of human emotional responses, but the aliens had completely misunderstood what they were seeing. They thought parental protection was a weakness, Turner explained to the command staff. "Look at these research notes." They believed that caring for offspring made humans vulnerable, easier to control. Ambassador Davis studied the alien data. They tested this theory by taking children, expecting the parents to become desperate and compliant. Instead, they created an entire species of motivated enemies, Jake finished. Every parent whose child was taken, every human who heard about stolen children, we all became their worst nightmare. The Zephyrian High Council finally sent a message to the human fleet. Their emotionless voices carried a new tone: desperation. "We propose immediate cessation of hostilities," the council leader announced. "All human offspring will be returned to your space. We offer full reparations for any discomfort caused." Admiral Sullivan's response was broadcast across the galaxy. "There will be no negotiations until every human child is free. There will be no peace until you dismantle every emotion harvesting facility, and there will be no mercy if you ever threaten human children again." General Paul Mitchell's ground forces had been systematically destroying Zephyrian infrastructure across 3 star systems. But they weren't random attacks. They were precisely targeting emotion harvesting technology. The aliens were learning that their entire way of life was incompatible with human existence. Dr. Rachel Thompson, who had been working with the rescued children, made a report that surprised everyone. The children are recovering faster than we expected. But it's not just medical treatment helping them. It's knowing that adults fought for them, that they weren't abandoned. Jake thought about Billy Hayes, who was slowly regaining his trust in the world. About Emma on Earth, who somehow had been connected to the suffering children and had tried to help them. About all the families across human space who were waiting for news of their lost young. The Zephyrians studied our emotions, Jake said to his command staff, but they never understood the most important thing about human feelings. What's that? Admiral Sullivan asked. They're not just individual responses. When you threaten one human child, you threaten all human children. When you hurt one of our young, you've declared war on our entire species. The alien scientist they had captured earlier was brought to the command deck. It looked at Jake with those large black eyes, still trying to understand what had happened to its civilization. Your species is highly illogical, the alien said. You are expending vast resources to rescue offspring that are not genetically related to you. This behavior serves no evolutionary purpose. Jake looked at the alien and smiled grimly. That's exactly why we're winning. You can't fight an enemy you don't understand, and you'll never understand why humans protect children that aren't even their own. Explain this illogic, the alien demanded. Every human child is our child, Jake said simply. Every human young is our future. When you stole them, you didn't just attack their families. You attacked our species, our hopes, our tomorrow. The alien stared at him in confusion. This emotional response is unprecedented. Yes, Jake agreed. It is, and that's why your empire is falling apart. You based your entire civilization on harvesting simple emotions from helpless victims. But you never imagined what would happen when you faced the full fury of a species protecting its young. Outside the ship, human forces continued their systematic destruction of Zephyrian emotion harvesting technology. The aliens were learning that some things in the universe were too dangerous to steal. They were learning about human love, and human rage, and the terrible price of threatening what humans held most dear. 2 years after the war ended, Jake Morrison stood in his backyard on Earth watching Emma and Billy Hayes play with other children on the swing set he had built. The sound of their laughter still amazed him. Free, innocent laughter that the Zephyrians had tried to steal forever. Dad, Emma called out. Billy says there's going to be a memorial service for the rescued kids. Can we go? Jake smiled and nodded. President Helen Carter had declared a day of remembrance for all the children who had suffered in alien facilities. But more than that, it was a celebration of humanity's awakening to its true strength. Admiral Tony Walsh approached across the grass. He was the new commander of the Terran Defense Forces, created after the war to make sure nothing like the Zephyrian crisis ever happened again. Jake, Tony said, good to see you enjoying retirement. Retirement? Jake laughed. I'm busier now than I ever was in the military. These kids need a lot of attention. It was true. Jake had adopted not just Billy, but 3 other children rescued from Zephyrian facilities. His house had become a gathering place for families touched by the war. Dr. Rachel Thompson often visited, continuing her work helping the children heal from their trauma. Any word from the frontier? Jake asked. Tony nodded grimly. The hegemony tried to establish a slave trading post in the Outer Rim, 1 ship full of human colonists, including children. What happened? 3 human patrol ships responded. The hegemony base was completely eliminated. No survivors. Tony paused. The aliens didn't even resist. When they realized they were facing human forces, they just surrendered immediately. Jake wasn't surprised. Word had spread throughout the galaxy about what happened when humans protected their young. The Zephyrian Empire had collapsed completely within 6 months of the war's end. Their emotion-harvesting technology, once the foundation of their civilization, became useless when other species learned to project human-style protective rage. Dr. Lisa Grant arrived with her own family. She had married Dr. Marcus Webb after the war, and they had adopted 4 rescued children together. Behind them came dozens of other families, all connected by the shared experience of the war. How are the kids doing? Lisa asked, watching Emma teach a younger child how to use the monkey bars. Better every day, Jake replied. Billy still has nightmares sometimes, but they're getting less frequent. Emma helps him through them. It was remarkable how Emma had become a leader among the rescued children. Though she had never been in a Zephyrian facility herself, her connection to the other children through the Alien Dream Network had created bonds that still existed. She understood their fears in ways that adults couldn't. Ambassador Clara Davis joined the gathering, though she was no longer an ambassador. The diplomatic corps had been reorganized after the war. Humanity's approach to alien relations had changed fundamentally. "I just came from a council meeting," Clara said. "The Sindari Alliance wants to sign a protection pact with us." "Protection from what?" Jake asked. "From us," Clara laughed. "They want guarantees that we won't attack them." Apparently, some of their member species used to practice child sacrifice in religious ceremonies. They've banned the practice entirely and want to make sure we know about it. Jake shook his head in amazement. The war had done more than rescue stolen children. It had changed how the entire galaxy treated young beings. Species across known space had reformed their laws, their customs, their traditions to make sure they never gave humans a reason to come for them. Luke Turner arrived with his wife and children, carrying a tablet full of data. He had become humanity's chief xenotechnology researcher, studying alien systems to make sure they could never be used to harm humans again. "Jake, you need to see this," Luke said. "We've been monitoring communications from the far galaxy. There's a species called the Collectors that used to raid other worlds for slaves. They just disbanded their entire operation." "Why?" "Because they heard about us," Luke grinned. "One of their target species had children among the population. The Collectors decided it wasn't worth the risk." General Paul Mitchell was the last to arrive, bringing news from the military frontier. His forces had been busy establishing new bases, not to threaten other species but to protect human colonies and any allies who asked for help. "The galaxy is getting safer," Paul reported. "We've had 17 species request human protection services for their young. Apparently having humans watching over children has become the ultimate security guarantee." Jake looked around at the children playing in his yard. Some of them bore scars from their time in alien facilities, but they were healing. More importantly, they were growing up in a galaxy that would never again see them as victims to be exploited. Dr. Rachel Thompson made her way through the crowd to Jake. She had been studying the long-term effects of the war on human society. "Jake, I've been working on a report about how this experience changed us as a species," she said. "The results are fascinating." "How so?" "Before the war, humans were scattered across the galaxy, focused on individual colonies and personal interests. But the threat to our children united us in ways nothing else could. We're not just a spacefaring species anymore. We're a genuinely unified civilization." It was true. The Terran Federation had transformed from a loose alliance of human worlds into something much stronger. Not through conquest or politics, but through the shared determination to protect human children everywhere. Emma ran up to Jake, breathless from playing. "Dad, Billy wants to know if you'll tell the story again." Jake looked at the gathering crowd of children and adults. The story had become a tradition at these gatherings, the tale of how humanity learned its true strength. "Which part of the story?" Jake asked. "The part about the aliens learning not to mess with human kids," Billy said, grinning. Jake sat down on his porch steps, and the children gathered around him. The adults listened too, because it was their story as well. "Once upon a time," Jake began, "there was an alien species that thought humans were weak, because we cared so much about our children. They thought they could steal our young and use their fear to power their machines. But they were wrong," Emma said, unable to contain herself. "They were very wrong," Jake agreed. "Because they didn't understand that when you threaten one human child, you threaten all human children. And when humans unite to protect their young, nothing in the galaxy can stand against them." "Tell about the spaceship battles," one of the younger children called out. "Well," Jake continued, "when human parents got angry enough, their anger became so powerful it broke the alien machines. The aliens had never felt emotions that strong before. They couldn't handle the fury of mothers and fathers fighting for their children. And the aliens learned their lesson?" Billy asked, though he already knew the answer. "The aliens learned their lesson," Jake confirmed, "and so did every other species in the galaxy. They learned that human children are protected by something more powerful than any weapon or any technology. They're protected by human love." As the sun set over Earth, Jake looked at the children around him and thought about the galaxy beyond. Somewhere out there, Alien species were learning to be better, to be kinder, because they knew humans were watching, somewhere out there. Children of all species were safer because humans had shown the galaxy what happened when young lives were threatened. The Zephyrians had wanted to harvest human emotions. Instead, they had awakened something in humanity that would protect children across the stars for generations to come. Emma leaned against Jake's shoulder. "Dad, do you think the aliens understand now why we fight so hard for kids?" Jake wrapped his arms around her and Billy, looking up at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. "I think they're starting to understand, Emma. They're learning that some things in the universe are more important than power or technology or conquest." "What things?" Billy asked. "Love," Jake said simply. "Family. The promise that no child should ever face nightmares alone." In the years that followed, the galaxy would remember this as the time when humans taught the universe a fundamental truth: that a species willing to sacrifice everything for its young was not weak, but undefeatable, and in a small backyard on Earth, the children who had survived the worst the galaxy could offer played and laughed under the protection of those who would never let them suffer again. The age of human fury had ended. The age of human guardianship had begun.